Introducing the African Diaspora News Channel app, your gateway to stories that's overlooked by the corporate mainstream media.
And we serve as the voice to the Truebal Black community.
Again, we got Dr. Candace Matthews.
A lot of these documents, looking at.
We are committed to informing and educating through the power of media.
This country is supposed to be about the land of the free for all. It has not been free for Black people, and we are tired.
With our platform, we're helping to end injustice by exposing it.
Join us in standing for excellence in journalism and serving our community. Download the African Diaspora News app today.
Hello there, how are you doing? Welcome to another episode of our conversations. My name is Ondiro Oganga. I'm a business journalist by profession and a digital content creator. And I love coming on here and having conversations with you guys about Black people, Africans, our empowerment, and how we can rise up and take a rightful place at the global stage. Connect with me on social media at Ondiro Oganga. Today I want to talk about Nigeria, and from a serious point of view, where if you put the interest of the West above your own country, what happens is exactly what's happening in Nigeria. And that is the point that we'll come to finish with. Let's start with what's currently happening in Nigeria. There have been several labor union protests. Two of the biggest labor unions in Nigeria put their hands together and went on the biggest industrial strike in Nigeria in recent times. And this saw massive blackout in the country that even affected the airport. And it affected flights landing, flights leaving, and just connectivity in general. What are some of the issues that are being raised through this? Minimum wage in Nigeria is 33,000 naira. That's equivalent to anywhere between $17 to $22 a month. Let that sink in. Somebody, a full-grown adult, with utilities, with rent, with groceries, with a family, with children, with school fees, with healthcare, with transport costs, is paid $17 a month. This is a country where 40% live below the poverty line. So it tells you that nearly half of the country lives on minimum wage, $17 to $22 a month. And it's been going on for ages. And these labor unions have been asking the government to increase their minimum wage. Of course, when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came into power a year ago, he said that this was going to be put in place. But even the terms that his administration are putting forward are not as good. He's offering them $40, which is about 60,000 naira. Again, $40 a month for somebody who has to pay rent, who has to pay utilities, who has to buy groceries, who has children he has to pay school fees for, who has health care, who has transport, who needs to save for rainy days. $40. And in the African continent, where the informal sector is the largest contributor to GDP, this is a sector that employs majority of the people, and they're making $40. 40. Is there any money left to go around the economy? How do you even grow? $40 a month. These labor unions got back to the government and said, no, it's not good. We want at least $330, roughly $300. They want about 300,000 naira. And the government says, we'll think about it. Of course, we know when you ask for 330 and somebody offers you 40, we know you're not getting nowhere near 300. You may get 60 or 100, but you're not getting what you asked for. What makes this story important and really interesting is the fact that times have really changed in Nigeria. Inflation is at a 28-year high at about 33%. Food prices have skyrocketed in this country. The price of rice has increased by nearly 100%. The price of onions and tomatoes have increased by nearly 97%. This is a staple in this country. People are unable to buy food that they eat. People are being forced to eat once a day, sometimes no meal in a day, because they can literally not afford it. Now, when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came into power, there are a couple of changes that he made. And these changes, most of them, were to improve investor perception and sentiment about Nigeria. one of the things that he did is he scrapped off fuel subsidies. And one thing about the IMF, we all know this, IMF doesn't like subsidies. It hates subsidies. It says subsidies should be short, sharp, and targeted. I agree with that. But they say that subsidies, such as fuel subsidies, benefit the rich. I do not agree with that. Because transport affects everything. Not just the rich fueling their car. If transport costs go high, the cost of moving food goes high, the cost of moving people goes high, so the cost of services is high, and people cannot afford anything. And that is the situation that Nigeria finds itself in, because the moment subsidies were removed, the prices of gas nearly tripled, and that ripple effect was felt on food prices, on prices of services, on prices of basic goods. They also went ahead to try and liberalize their FX market and converge between the parallel and the official rate. And what happened is their currency lost nearly 70% of its value to the dollar. What then happens is that importing becomes extremely expensive. And so importing, people cannot necessarily afford, because businesses have to make their money. And if I'm buying the dollar expensively, I'm going to pass down that cost to you, the consumer. Now, let's go back to the consumer. How much does the consumer make a month? $17 a month. Let that sink in. And so because of this widespread unrest, we've seen people begin to rob these lorries and trailers that are ferrying grains because people are hungry. I think it's Tupac that said, when we knock and we're hungry, we just say, we're hungry, can we get some food? Can we get some food? Eventually, we'll come in and eat you. And that's exactly what's beginning to happen in this country. And so the president has been forced to swoop in. Remember when he came into power, he said he removed some subsidies because it was important to improve investor sentiment. And this is Western investor sentiment. It doesn't factor in the nuances of African economies. Subsidies might not be a great thing in Europe because their minimum wage is way higher than in Africa. But when you consider that minimum wage is $17, then you realize the importance of subsidies. And Bola Ahmed Tinubu has realized this very early on into his term. The first term, second year, he's realized this is actually not going to work. And so the president is considering removing import levy on food and things like medicine to lower their prices, because he is realizing that this pot is boiling and it's actually at a tipping point. And if nothing changes, chaos are literally going to descend on Nigeria. And let me tell you something, chaos that are artificially generated by politicians is very different from that rage that is emanating from within and the citizenry that is dissatisfied. We always say a hungry man is an angry man. And that is somebody that you cannot reason with because they have very valid grievances. They're fighting for themselves. You know, anytime there's unrest on the continent, it's always this political party versus this political party, this affiliation versus this affiliation. Now the whole country is coming together for one united cause, which is to tell you that do something about this or we actually will. And this should be a lesson to many more African countries. Before you begin listening to the IMF, before you begin listening to the World Bank, before you begin listening to all these fancy Wharton schooled economists, go back to the basics and look at the econometrics of your country. Can they support these Western policies? If the answer is no, stand your ground, unless in a year's time, you'll be like President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And exactly what's happening in Nigeria will be what will be happening to you. Let me know what you think about the ongoing situation in Nigeria. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.